For today, we will be discussing all about the integumentary system. The integumentary system is mainly composed of our skin and accessory structures. What are these accessory structures? These are your hair, glands, and nails. Most of the time, we are concerned about the appearance of our skin for vanity's sake, yeah, for beauty. But the appearance also of our skin can indicate physiological imbalances. Even some disorders can be seen through the skin. For example, of these disorders are your acne, no, yung mga pimples, and warts. Also, anything that is evidenced or seen in the skin, no, can also be a sign of a disorder, and you can use it to diagnose certain medical conditions. Okay, for example, if you are anemic, that means you have low hemoglobin in your blood, you would look pale. Yeah, there is pallor in the skin. Also, if you have fever, where there is increased blood flow, you can look flushed, no? Parang namumula. That is a sign that you are having a high body temperature, okay? You are having fever, okay? Also, during a heart attack, there is some decreased blood flow through the skin, yeah? And they would also look pale in that medical condition. Some diseases also have skin rashes like dengue fever, measles, and chickenpox. Even allergic reactions is also manifested in the skin. So our skin forms the boundary between the body and the external environment. However, even if it separates us from the external environment, it also allows our body to interact with it. No? Okay, let's discuss what are the major functions of our integumentary system. First is for protection. How does it protect? It reduces the negative and harmful effects of ultraviolet light. This is always present in the rays of the sun. Okay, so every day we walk outside, we are exposed under the heat of the sun with this ultraviolet rays. So our skin actually does protect us from that. It also acts as a barrier by keeping microorganisms from entering the body, and it prevents dehydration by reducing water loss. Okay, how does it reduce water loss? If you are dehydrated, that means you lack water in your body system, then your sweat glands are inhibited from their activity, okay, in order for your body to conserve more water. Okay, let's discuss another function, which is your sensation. So your skin has a lot of sensory receptors, and these are the ones that make you detect all of this: heat, cold, touch, pressure, and pain. Just imagine if you won't be able to detect all of these senses, no? The sense of heat, the sense of cold, okay? If you do not detect that something is hot, you will burn, and you will not know that you burnt yourself already. So that's one way that becomes helpful to us, no? The sensation that we feel. Next one is temperature regulation. So how does our skin or our integumentary system regulates our body temperature? By modulation of blood flow through the skin and through the activity of our sweat glands. Okay. Next one is vitamin D production. So the skin produces a molecule that can be transformed, no? Ito yung gagamitan, itong molecule na ito. Once our skin is exposed under the heat of the sun, it will produce a certain molecule. And this molecule produced is used to create the hormonal form of vitamin D, no? It is being transformed. This molecule is being transformed into the hormonal form of vitamin D. This vitamin D is very essential, okay? It regulates calcium homeostasis. So that's one very important function of the skin. And the last one here is for excretion. A small amount of waste is actually excreted through our skin and glands. So what are the two major tissue layers of your skin? You have your epidermis and your dermis. So your epidermis here, this portion here, this is the most superficial layer of the skin, and it's made up of stratified squamous epithelium. When you say stratified, it is made up of multiple layers of a squamous epithelium. Okay, it has to be multiple, no, multiple cell layers because your epidermis protects you against potential damage from abrasion, yung mga sugat, no? That's why it has to be thick, no? Multiple in layer. Okay. Now your epidermis sits on uh, another layer, which is the deeper one, is your dermis. Okay. Now this is a layer of connective tissue, and this is actually the main portion of the skin that contributes to its strength. Okay, that's your dermis. Now, your dermis sits on top of subcutaneous tissue or what you call your hypodermis, no? Yan, subcutaneous tissue or hypodermis. This is actually your fats, no? Your adipose tissues or your fats. So this is not part of your integumentary system, but it connects, no? This portion here, your hypodermis, it connects your skin, no? Part of your skin to the underlying muscles or bones already, okay? So let's talk more about the dermis, epidermis. Your epidermis is separated from your dermis by a basement membrane. Okay? So mayroong basement membrane in between your epidermis and your dermis. And you see that your epidermis has no blood vessels. Where do you see your blood vessels? You see them in the dermal layer, no? So dito. But however, how does your living cells get its nutrients, no, kung wala siyang blood vessels? The blood vessels from your dermal layer, they reach through your epidermis by way of the capillaries, no? So dito in the capillaries, this is where the diffusion happens of your diffusion of your nutrients, your gases, and your waste. Okay. And although your epidermis is actually made up of stratified layers of cells, no? But it is not as thick as your dermis, no? Tingnan mo dito, your dermis is this thick, but your epidermis is only this thick. So your epidermis is made up of a lot of several types of cells, no? But the majority of them, or most of the epidermis cells, are your keratinocytes, okay? They are called keratinocytes because they produce this protein mixture called keratin. Later on, I will discuss to you what happens with keratinization, okay? But you should know that keratin is the one responsible that contributes to the durability of your keratinocytes. And this durability is the one that makes your epidermis resist abrasion and reduce water loss. Okay. Your keratinocytes are actually constantly lost, no, in the epidermis. So imagine this is your epidermis, and you have keratinocytes here, no, that are in the most superficial layer, no. You have your keratinocytes here, ito sila, yung nasa most superficial layer. They are eventually and constantly lost, but they are also replaced by new developing keratinocytes. No, yung mga new developing keratinocytes, they undergo mitosis. No? When you say mitosis, cell division, underneath your epidermal layer, no? Sa ilalim. So, this happens actually in the deepest layer of your epidermis, no? Where your keratinocytes undergo mitosis. Now, this one would replace your old keratinocytes, no? They would move superficially, no? To replace your old keratinocytes. Kasi itong mga old na to, all these old keratinocytes would eventually slough off. This type of stratified arrangement, no, is actually a protective strategy of your skin, because this one, the superficial layer, would also protect yung underneath, no, developing keratinocytes. Okay, and then as your keratinocytes move through the surface, no, this is what happens now in keratinization. As they move through the surface, they slowly accumulate keratin. And as they undergo the process of keratinization, no, they accumulate keratin. Once they accumulate keratin, they eventually die and produce an outer layer of dead hard cells. Okay, outer layer of dead hard cells is the one responsible for making your skin resist abrasion and forms a permeable barrier. Okay. Now, what is so significant about studying keratinization? Many skin diseases, because of the malfunction of the process of keratinization, is identified. One of them is your psoriasis. In psoriasis, there are large scales of epidermal tissues that are being sloughed off. No, that the merong problem with this process. Now we also have other cells on your epidermis. You have your melanocytes. They are the ones responsible for producing the pigment, no, called melanin, and they contribute to your skin color. So the higher the melanin content would be, the darker your skin is. No? There are also some Langerhans cells. These Langerhans cells are the immune cells that are present in the skin. They are the ones that fight the bacteria, viruses that it encounters. You know, you also have your Merkel cells. Your Merkel cells are epidermal cells associated with nerve endings. No, this one naman is for sensation. They have nerve endings that are responsible to detect light touch, no, and superficial pressure. The many layers of the cells in the epidermis are divided into regions, or what you call the strata. No? And here you have the 5 different regions or strata in the epidermis. I will start with the deepest, no? Deepest going to the superficial. Okay, the deepest layer of cells are called your stratum basale, and then followed by your stratum spinosum, stratum granulosum, stratum lucidum, and stratum corneum, which is the most superficial. All the number of cell layers in each stratum and even the number of strata in the skin varies, no? May ibang layer May ibang portion ng skin that has no certain layers, no, of some stratum, okay, of some strata. So it depends kung saan yan siya na location ng body mo. So I discussed to you earlier what happens in keratinization, no? That as your keratinocytes progress from one stratum going to the next, no? They undergo a series of changes, and that's what you call keratinization. Now, this is in relation to the different stratum that you see in your epidermis. Okay, so we would start with the deepest layer, which is your stratum basale. This is also called your stratum germinativum, which is made up of single layer of cuboidal cells. So, you see, yung cells niya parang cube-like, no? It's one layer of cuboidal. Pwede rin siyang columnar cells. And at this layer, your stratum basale is anchored to the basement membrane. No? Itong nakikita niyong dark portion underneath is your basement membrane. This is the one that I tell you earlier that your epidermis is separated from the dermis through a basement membrane. So your stratum basale, no, cells are actually anchored through your basement membrane by your hemidesmosome. Siya yung parang tagadikit ng yung stratum basale to your basement membrane. So yung mga green spots that you see, that those are your hemidesmosomes. And aside from that, you see in between your cuboidal cells, you also see those green spots, no? Meron ding tagadikit ng each stratum basale cell, no? Yung isang cuboidal cell is also glued into your next, no? Merong tagadikit din dyan. That is your desmosomes naman, okay? All of this, your hemidesmosomes, that keeps your stratum basale connected very well to your basement membrane, and the desmosome, which connects from one cuboidal cell to another, no? From one stratum basale cell to another. These are the ones that strengthen your epidermis. Okay? Structural strength. Sila yung tagabigay ng structural strength. Okay? Now, your keratinocytes are also strengthened internally, no, by your keratin fibers. Your keratin fibers are intermediate filaments. So, internally, they insert to the desmosomes, okay? And this one makes it even more, strong, okay? With the help of your keratin, which are intermediate filaments or your keratin fibers. The keratinocyte stem cells here in your stratum basale would undergo mitotic divisions, no? So they divide approximately 19 days. So my parent cell dito that divides, no? Daughter cells, no? Siya yung parang taga-produce, may parent cell dyan. Then yung daughter cells would eventually rise up through the layers, no? To undergo keratinization process. Okay? Pero yung parent cell would stay there, no? Standby lang siya dito, and it will be the one responsible to produce constantly yung mga daughter cells that will mature and go through the process of keratinization. So from here, going through the surface, this actually takes 40 to 56 days, no? Para mas slough off siya in the most superficial layer. So let's go to the superficial layer to the stratum basale, no? On top of it is your stratum spinosum, okay? This actually consists of 8 to 10 layers of many-sided cells, okay? So as the cells in this stratum are pushed to the surface, they flatten. Desmosomes here, no, they start to break apart. The one na nakakabit sa basement membrane mo, no? So as the cells move through this stratum, the desmosome starts to break apart, but the new desmosomes form also. So if you view this in the microscope, you will see, no, normally these cells would shrink, no, from one another. But except those that are attached to desmosome, they actually look uh, shiny, no? They appear shiny. Yung mga naka-attach pa sa desmosomes, they appear shiny. That's why they are called after this name, no? Stratum spinosum. Now, as the keratinocytes here progress through this stratum, there are additional keratin fibers, no, that they accumulate, and they also accumulate this what you call, ito na yung keratin fibers, no? They add more keratin fibers, and they also add more of this lipid-filled membrane-bound organelles. You call this your lamellar bodies, okay? And all of these form inside your cells. So on top of your stratum spinosum is your stratum granulosum, okay? So this is a layer that consists 2 to 5 layers of flattened diamond-shaped cells, okay? That's why ang diamond-shaped cells na parang nakahiga because the long axis of these cells are parallel to the surface of the skin. Now, the stratum contains protein granules, no? You call them your keratohyalin granules. That's why, and that's why they are called granulosome because of these protein granules, no? Your keratohyalin that are accumulating inside the cytoplasm. Now, also on this stage, the cells coming from the stratum spinosum, which has lipid-filled lamellar body, once they reach through the stratum, they would release these lipid bodies, no, to the plasma membrane, then to the extracellular space, no. Pagka-release ng lipid outside, no, the plasma membrane, then there is the formation of what you call the protein envelope. Ito na siya, no? This protein envelope would form beneath your plasma membrane. Okay? So as they do that, pagka-release ng lipid bodies mo, and then the formation of a protein envelope, okay, makes your keratinocytes die, and they lose their nucleus. Okay, so it's at that stage that they lose the nucleus and where they also die, no? However, yung keratin fibers mo and your keratohyalin would still be there, no? They do not degenerate. Now, superficial to your stratum granulosum is your stratum lucidum. So this is a thin, clear zone, no, above your stratum granulosum, and it consists of several layers of dead keratinocytes without distinct borders. Okay? Your keratin fibers here are still present, but yung keratin granules that are present in the granulosum, no, stratum, is dispersed, no? They are slowly dispersed. That's why they look transparent. Now, this layer is sometimes absent on different parts of your skin, okay? And actually, it is only present in few areas of the body lang. So, which areas of the body has no stratum lucidum and which areas of the body has a stratum lucidum? It's for you to find out. Okay, you read about which areas have this unique stratum, which most of the areas of skin have is absent, no? Wala siyang stratum lucidum. So the last and most superficial stratum is of the epidermis is your stratum corneum. So this stratum is composed of 25 or more layers of dead overlapping squamous cells. No, they are joined by desmosomes, but eventually these desmosomes break apart, and that's the time they are being sloughed off, no, and shedded from the surface of the skin. Now, sometimes this happens to be very excessive na, no? Yung shedding of the stratum corneum. So that's why you see that as in scalp, no, as a form of dandruff. But normally, this isn't noticed, no? Less noticeable siya. We actually shed from rubbing our clothes to our skin, no? Sa friction, or when we wash our skin, okay? They actually shed, but this is not noticeable. So the cells in this stratum corneum, no, they are consist of cornified cells, okay, which are dead keratinocytes with a hard protein envelope. So imagine a core, no, they are matigas, no. That's a hard protein envelope that are filled with keratin, no, and this keratin is a mixture of your keratin fibers and your keratohyalin. So all of this, no, yung keratin fibers, keratohyalin, plus yung ang tawag nito, yung cornified cells, no? They actually are responsible for the structural strength of this most superficial layer. Okay? But the type of keratin that is found in the skin is a soft keratin. But we also have what you call a hard keratin, and these are found in your nails and the external parts of your hair.